Today, I'm speaking with a director, a producer, a writer, and he is currently directing the King's Cross production of the queer Asian Australian production of RHOMBOID. Welcome to Gaywaves, Sammy Jing.
Hi, yeah. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks, Sammy. Appreciate that. Can you tell us a bit about your journey into theatre and theatre directing? How did you get involved with that?
Yeah, so I've always loved theater ever since I was little. Mum always took me to see shows. We had a movie on every night at home, and so um, I fell in love with stories and storytelling um, ever since I was really young. And Mom and I would always talk about the movies or the shows afterwards. And we'd always go, "Oh, wouldn't it be better if they did that? Wouldn't it be better if they did this?" And then we'd always finish the conversation with a bit of a joke, like, "Oh, we should be in charge. It would be so much better." And when I was when I went to university, I didn't know anything about directing at all. And I took a class on a whim just to see what it was all about. And turns out it was basically those conversations I had with mum growing up all those years, but actually making it happen. And so, yeah, I realized that was what I wanted to do. And it's kind of been smooth sailing ever since. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, you actually went to university in Canada, I believe, at the University of British Columbia, and where you graduated with honours in theatre. Was it theatre studio? No, theatre.
It's theater
Yeah,
studies, yeah.
studies. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, I was in Vancouver, so British Columbia, West Coast, Best
Yeah.
Coast. And yeah, it was a big change of pace because I grew up in Hong Kong.
Mm.
Um, born there, finished high school there, and then I moved to Canada because I wanted to get away. I didn't know what I was trying to get away from, but I
Mm.
just wanted to go somewhere new and explore. And yeah, and Vancouver kind of gave me a lot of really cool opportunities to do some really amazing things. Um, I'm a huge ancient Greece nerd. Uh, yeah, and so that's what I did my honors dissertation on. It was ancient Greek theater and how it informed the legal system of the time. And yeah, so she's a bit of an academic.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because one of your specialities is ancient Greek theatre, and I was going to say,
Mm.
how does a kid from Hong Kong studied in Canada and Australia get involved in ancient Greek theatre? I mean, that's a huge jump, isn't it?
I mean, if you've seen the 2001 animated Hercules movie, I
Yeah.
think that's all the explanation I need. But yeah, I mean, it was something that really captured my imagination. It was a so familiar yet so foreign and alien, and it like the stories of heroes and um, this amazing world of mythology. It really captured something within me, some form of like escapism of um, like a better, more heroic world. And yeah, it was something yeah, the little kid still inside of me is still geeks out about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it's does that influence your storytelling to this day? It's like, do you want a chorus with everything, or
Uh, I mean, yes. It's
yeah,
always a tough sell, but
yeah.
yeah, no, it does influence the way that I work. I've kind of discovered while working on Rhomboid um, that I direct quite musically. I've got a little bit of a dance background, and a lot of it is influenced by movement and chorality. That's a fancy word for you.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, and music and having things be timed out and yeah, I'm realizing that a lot of that influence does seep in, even without me necessarily realizing it while I'm doing it.
Yeah, and you moved from Vancouver, you moved to Australia and you studied at NIDA,
Yeah.
Australia's premier acting and theatre school, and you studied the Master of Finance in directing. Why Australia? Why did you make a move from Canada to Australia?
I've always been an Australian citizen,
Right.
despite my accent. Yeah, mum's a local Sydney gal, uh, and dad moved here in the 80s, and they met at Sydney Uni. And
Wow.
yeah, and so I've always been Australian, but I've just my accent has never reflected that.
Mm.
But yeah, and so when I moved here, it was I moved back in with family as opposed to when I moved to Canada, and I was kind of going solo. But it's been really warm and welcoming, and I really really like it here.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, because you're a guest lecturer at NIDA now as well.
Mm.
And now, am I right in saying you only graduated from NIDA this year as well?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of started in 2021, and so
Mm.
um, a bit of Miss Rona shenanigans got us, yeah, got things a little bit delayed. But
Mm.
yeah, I guess uh, my show off moment is that I started working there before I graduated, so I was still technically a student by the time I
Mm.
started working there, which is a huge privilege.
It's
And
it's an amazing achievement as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, it felt kind of funny at my graduation ceremony when it was like, wow, it must be nice to finally leave. And it's like, no, I'm back on Tuesday.
And I mean, besides, because you do lecture in classical Greek theatre,
Mhm.
the other side of it though is you lecture in East Asian performance as well.
Mm.
Um, how how does your Chinese Hong Kong background influence that, and how has it influenced your theatre career?
It's been a huge influence. So dad's from mainland China, and my grandparents don't speak a lick of English. I think
Mm.
the only word they can say is no. Um, so yeah, I had to learn Chinese to in order to speak to them.
Mm.
And I would say I'm fluent, but not native speaker. Um, but yeah,大家好我的名字叫 Sammy，谢谢听我的讨论。Anyway,
Yeah. Shay.
yeah, so that's me. Yeah, and it's been a huge influence. I think despite appearances, I lived like some of my most formative years from childhood up until I was 17 in Asia. And
Mm.
so like that's how I was socialized, and it was definitely like an interesting experience, like growing up in like an Asian colony. Um, and then yeah, and that brings with it all sorts of interesting kind of implications with that. And a very worldly, international kind of experience that comes with that.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so I've always been really interested in telling stories where cultures meet. Um, the intersection of things that might not necessarily fit together, but somehow sing harmoniously when they do, and
Mm.
just yeah, it's something that is really important to me, and just noticing those little connections, those little patterns
Mm.
um, in difference, and recognizing the harmony within that.
Yeah. Now, talking about sort of a symbiotic relationship, rhomboid. It seems like you're perfectly suited, queer, Asian, Australian. Um,
Mhm.
Tell us how you got involved in the project.
Yeah, so it's all started back when KXT, King's Cross Theatre, was
Mm.
actually situated in King's Cross.
Cross.
Currently, it sits on it's KXT on Broadway near
Mm.
Broadway Shopping Center. But before they did the big move, uh, the writer by the name of Eric Jiang, he was part of their artist development program called Step Up, and they were given an opportunity to do some kind of showcase or showing or something, and they were given the space. And Eric had kind of an idea for a script and sent it over to me and asked if I was interested in doing a version of it, put up with actors and with a little bit of production value behind it. And so we settled on doing a staged reading where, actors still have scripts in hands, but it's up and it's alive and it's moving. And yeah, and that's where we kind of got a sense of the production and how it felt and its rhythms and how it manifests. Especially because there are some scenes that take place in this digital space, and it's kind of like humanizing what it and humanizing what it feels like to message someone, and like what would a heart react or a thumbs up look like if you did that in person? What does it look like to
Mm.
see their message but not respond to it? What does that look like in person? And kind of figuring out what that visual language was. And we really threw it together in a really short span of time. In 10 days total, I received the script 10 days before we did it.
Wow.
And it really was beg, borrow, and steal. I just grabbed as many actors that I knew and trusted close by, and we put it together in a mad dash. We went through about 5 drafts in
Mm.
a week.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was really, really, really quick turnaround. And it had no right to be as good as it was. Like, it really shouldn't have come together the way it did, but it did, and we're really grateful for it. And the lovely John and Suzanne who run KXT um, swung by to have a look, and they loved it. And when it came time to pitch for them for the season,
Mm.
uh, uh, we just knew we had to, and here we are.
Yeah, exactly. And can you tell us a little bit about this, without giving it away, of course, a bit about the storyline of Rhomboid?
Yeah, so the story follows these two young men by the name of Sebastian and Xavier. And Xavier is a wonderfully charming and chaotic and witty and uh, youthful kind of guy. Um, and Sebastian is more reserved, still witty, but they bring a real kind of balance to each other.
Mm.
And we kind of track their relationship over the course of about 6 to 8 years, as they're finishing up year 12,
Mm.
going into university, and then graduating and being a 20 something, and then um, starting to that period in your mid 20s when weddings start to happen and you start to get invited there, and
Hmm.
just seeing how they grow and shape each other through the years and figuring out what they mean to each other. And every scene kind of throws in this wonderfully magical, sticky complication to how they see each other and what they mean to each other. Are they friends? Are they romantic partners? Are they neither or both or everything and nothing? And it's really, really asking everyone to consider, um, you know, what happens when your relationship doesn't fit into a neat little box? What do you
Mm.
call that? Um, and what does that mean in queer bodies? What does that mean in people of color? What does that mean when all of those things happen together?
I was actually going to ask you as well. You just what you're saying there. Um, do you think there's a difference being Asian Australian play, a queer play as well, than just say an Anglo Australian production? What impact has that Asian side of it taken in this play?
Yeah, I think it was really special for Eric and I, um, in our writer-director relationship, that we did have a story that followed a queer Asian person, and to be able
Mm.
to demonstrate just how funny and messy and human they can be, and that it's certainly not impossible, and in fact, really joyous to follow a queer Asian man as a protagonist, and um, what energy that brings. And we've had a couple of preview shows,
Mm,
and just to see the responses, and to see the queer Asian men of all different ages kind of uh, responding to that representation, and responding to it. Representation matters, and
mm,
it's been seen time and time and time again. And it's very rare to see a story be put on the shoulders of someone who's queer and Asian. Um, and it's something that we really felt that uh, Sydney stages, uh, but not even just there. Stages around the world uh, could really use a new perspective that maybe you haven't seen before.
yeah. You talked about representation there. How important do you feel, or do you feel it's important at all, that parts are played by queer actors or Asian actors when it's the part is queer and Asian?
Uh, for this particular production, yes, we did feel like it was very important. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on two minds of this, because there's a
Mm,
part of me that says that, acting is an incredible opportunity for someone who's not part of a particular group to learn more about a particular culture or subculture or identity, um, and come out on the other side of a show, um, like having a really embodied understanding of that. But then there's also the other case of giving the realities of having uh, employing a queer Asian person and paying them, and
mm,
drawing upon their lived experience to empower a role as well. And it turns out queer people don't all agree on everything all the time.
mm,
Um, but at least within myself, I always go, well, the only people that we can really truly do right by is the people that we're working with. And if we arrive at the decision that's right for us, um, then that's all we can do.
mm.
And yeah, but for this particular production, uh, we felt it was really important that the cast was some flavor of queer.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's been really amazing. Um, we've really kind of accidentally become incredible trans allies and non-binary allies, because I think out of the six crew members, four of them are non-binary or trans.
Wow. Excellent.
Um, and the main cast, except for one of our understudies, is identifies as queer.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so we really do have, just by accident, are really really killing it on the representation side.
That's amazing. I love that answer. That's fantastic.
Thank
I
you.
want to talk about now. You talk about your relationship with Eric, the writer. Um,
Mm.
Now I know that sometimes now you're being director and you're working. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You seems like you've got a very strong relationship with Eric. How is that relationship in terms of writer director? Because I know in theatre sometimes your vision may not be the writer's vision. How have you
Mm.
negotiated that, and how's your relationship with Eric?
Yeah, so our relationship is like a writer director relationship is always really special. At least from my end of things, that it's I always see being trusted with the first time a work is being produced and put on. That it's an immense privilege to be trusted with a story, and
Mm,
especially a story so personal to Eric. And that's something to be really grateful for.
mm,
Um, yeah, and Eric has put a lot of trust in me as well, in order to do justice by the work, because it's brilliant, brilliant writing. Um, Yeah, but really what it is, it's about and I think, yeah, that's what it is. It's doing justice by the work. At the end of the day, it's about the story. It's not about like whose idea is better. It's about which idea is going to serve the story best. Um, and like it really helps put ego aside and really focus on what matters, which is bringing these characters to life and building this incredible world that they inhabit, and inviting everyone come opening night uh, to be a part of it as well. Yeah, so we've been working on this for over I was just over a year now working on
Wow.
this script.
Yeah.
Um, Even though we've only started a production, you know, 6 weeks ago, just under 2 months ago.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, it's been a wild ride. Lots of drafts, lots of discoveries made along the way. But now that we're here and yeah, the show is real and alive and tangible, I couldn't be happier with what we have to show.
That's amazing. Now, obviously, with in theatre, sometimes money can be tight, and productions can um, have restraints, I suppose. How do you balance your creative vision with some of the restraints you might have in costing, production, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so it's it's I guess kind of like the running gag that you have to beg, borrow, and steal within the indie theater community. That
Yeah.
really, you know, like if you're in theater, it's because you love it, because there's not much funding put towards it.
Mhm.
But what that breeds is a creativity through constraints. And you're kind of forced to be more creative because you can't just hand wave something away and cover it with a clever cut in camera. You can't
Mm.
CGI something, although that does take a lot of work too. But
Mm.
um, yeah, so really you're forced to really fire on all cylinders with your creative brain. But also, theater offers a lot of freedom. You know,
Mm.
through the magic of theater, imagination's a powerful thing, and if a performer is able to capture someone's imagination, you can really I don't know if "get away with" is the right word,
Mm.
but, yeah, you can absolutely, suck audiences into this place where, it there's a lot of buy-in and forgiveness and, um, tolerance for the fact that it's literally just you and 60 people standing in a room watching someone talk for 90 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
Theater's magical like that. It makes
Yeah.
you the rest of the world peel away.
Yeah. Would you say that you've got a particular style in directing, and how do you help the actors actually bring their characters to life?
Yeah, so, in terms of style, yeah, I've only very recently discovered that I direct, like, with m music and dance and movement and rhythm quite a
Mm.
lot, which was kind of a new discovery on this show. Um, but yeah, I would like to say that I love telling stories where cultures or subcultures meet and interact and renegotiate. I love telling stories with a real heart to them, you know?
Mm.
Um, and I love experimentation and play and an organic kind of discovery. So when it comes to working with my actors in the room, we spend a lot of time actually just really getting to grips with the text. We don't worry about what the final product is going to look like. And we really just get to grips um, with what the text is doing, and a deep exploration of character, so that when it comes time um, to start um, in a very real sense, figuring out where things are going to go, where people are going to stand, how people are going to say things, that they know their character so well that it actually becomes second nature for them to know what's happening. And so my process is very actor driven,
Mm.
and giving them a lot of agency, and just taking very specific moments and crafting them and detailing them Uh, yeah, and so I would like to think that my process really empowers actors to um, follow their impulses, respond to one another, and support each other along
Mm.
the way.
Has there been any directors or anyone in the industry that's really inspired you and that you look to as an inspiration?
Oh, absolutely. One of my dear friends, Amy Soul, I think everything that they touch turns to gold. They have an incredible way of holding space, um, and they really bring black ways of working and make it so warm and so inviting and so yeah, you feel like a different person after being in
Mm.
their room. They're absolutely incredible. um, I think Courtney Stewart is incredible. She's currently the artistic director at Le Bois in Brisbane. She's an incredible director and juggles being a mother of two and an artistic director and a director and a activist, and makes it look so easy.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, she does really, really incredible work. Um, yeah, and then, a director that has really, sparked my imagination is, a wonderful woman by the name of Sophia Bryant. She just did a show a couple of months ago called Dumb Kids at KXT as well,
Yeah.
and, I think she's incredibly talented and brilliant, and, yeah, I've seen a couple of things that she's done, and she's always impressed.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, it makes me kind of go, oh wow, I got to keep on my toes. Like,
Mm.
like I better step up too if this is the quality of the people that I call my peers. Um, so yeah, no, those are three people that I think are absolutely just brilliant and killing it at the moment.
Yeah, and as you said, I mean, I think the quality of theatre at the moment is amazing. But how do
Mm.
you see the scene in Sydney? Do you think it's thriving, or has it died, or how? What do you think of the Sydney scene at the moment?
Yeah, so the Sydney scene is certainly not dead.
Mm.
It's definitely not dead. I think that um, the quality of theater at the moment is kind of booming
Mm.
because everyone's had the lockdowns to kind of sit with the work and slow down and really pay attention to it. So once lockdowns were over, suddenly we had a lot of scripts that had a lot of thought and care and time put into them, ready to be done. So the quality of theater at the moment and probably for the next few years is going to be absolutely astounding.
Mm.
Um, yeah. And yeah, Sydney theater is certainly not dead.
Mhm.
There's a reason why, the Opera House, is one of the big symbols of Australia, and it's one of the few theater buildings in that represents a country.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's certainly not going anywhere anytime soon. Yeah. That doesn't mean that we're getting any more funding. That would be great.
It would be great, yeah.
That would be really great, to get a little bit more funding and a little bit more support um, so that people are able to not need a second job um, in order to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
But uh, but like I said, it's a real labor of love,
Yeah.
and people are doing it because they care about it, and that's where the best work happens when people care.
Yeah. And people should get out and support local theatre as well. Go and see a play, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think now more than ever, people are recognizing the joys and privileges of actually leaving the house
Mm.
and coming together and being in community and supporting others in your community, whether it be just by showing up or yeah, even that's enough. And yeah, and theater is an amazing place to do that, and to hear stories and to learn and to grow and to laugh and to cry and to just be. Um, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a really wonderful thing.
Yeah. Um, if a young aspiring director came to you, what would be your advice to them about how to get into the industry?
How to get into the industry? Oh boy.
Mm,
Honestly, give it a crack. You
mm,
know, you're I wouldn't be here if I didn't give it a crack and give it a red hot go and had no clue what was going on while I was doing it, flying by the seat of my pants. And um, yeah, but give it a go, get involved, volunteer, and really just see if it's right for you. But there's so many. Um, I feel like I'm speaking for quite a few artists when it was like the pull, the draw, the yearning was just so strong that I couldn't see myself doing anything else.
mm,
Um, and I've been very fortunate that I've been able to kind of make that a part of my career. Um, but yeah, it's honestly getting out there, volunteering, trying out for all the things, and learning on the job, and um, seeing everyone in the room as your teacher, and sponging it all up because, uh, yeah, whether it's a professional production or like a uni like review
hmm.
or a high school production, it doesn't matter. Like
Yeah,
just the fact that you're able to be a part of it and feel that the theater bug, you call it the theater bug.
yeah,
Yeah, keep it alive, keep it well, happy and healthy, and you'll go far with it.
yeah. Um, do you have like a dream project you would want to get involved in, or a collaboration that you'd love to do? Who would that be?
Oh my goodness, so many. Oh God, is this interview going for another 3 hours? Um,
We could, but
yeah, so I mean, I would love to do a Greek tragedy,
ah,
but be able to do it at scale, like to have
mm,
$1 bajillion behind it, and to be able to just sell the grandeur and the epicness of it. In my personal opinion, Medea by Euripides is probably the
mhm,
best play ever. Um, and yeah, I would love to have $1 kajillion to do that, and to just sell the epicness and the grandeur and the height and emotions. It's all brilliant. Um, I would love to do a show with my best friend, Rakaya. She's a brilliant director as well, and just to do anything with
mm,
her is a dream. She's the kookiest character in the best way, and even if we just did a little like drag night in our living room together, just doing anything with her is just a blast. And there's a brilliant play called She Kills Monsters by Queen Nguyen, and it's queer and it's nerdy D&D brilliance.
yeah,
It's about this older sister, and her younger sister had just passed away um, as a teenager, and she's kind of trying to connect with her sister posthumously, um, through her D&D journals, and she finds out that she never came out as a lesbian. She never, and you just see like just real just grief and mourning and loss, but also just the joys of fighting giant dragons and being
mm,
like it's just the best. It's the best, and I'd love to do that.
that would be
Um,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, on a more practical level, what would be next for you
Um,
after Rhomboid? What would be is Have you got something lined up?
yeah. So w- I've currently got a screenplay for a short film that I wrote called Wake Up Call, um, and basically it follows this man uh, as he wakes up every single day, and we just follow
Mm,
his morning routine, and we see just his routine, um, and there's no dialogue at all. And then one
yeah.
day he wakes up with someone else in his bed, and we see kind of the life, um, the birth, life, and death of their relationship, and
Yeah.
just through movement and action, and yeah, and so I'm really excited to get that process rolling.
Yeah.
Once I'm able to let go of Rhomboid in a few days.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's my kind of first foray into directing a short film, and I'm really excited to see what that looks like for me.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I've just been to the Queer Screen Film Festival, and it's like there's some amazing queer work out there at the moment. So
Oh,
I hope you get that
incredible.
up and running, definitely. Um,
Me too.
yeah. um, and I do apologize about my dog to the listeners. She's back in the background. Lastly, last question. What keeps you motivated and passionate about directing and theatre?
Oh, um, well, as someone who's in the industry, I'm quite lucky to have a lot of friends in shows doing
Mm,
things, and so yeah, in any given week, I'm probably going to see someone I know performing in something,
mm,
and like, and just every so often, there's just one show uh, that just makes you go, "Oh God, this is why I love what I do."
hmm
Oh wow, and yeah, like throughout all of the hardships and all the challenges, and yeah, all of the things that you encounter. In the course of your artistic career, it's those moments that make you go, "Oh, wow, this is what I'm doing it for." And yeah, and if you're so lucky to have that happen in your own show, and you have that with yourself, that's just makes you feel like you're on the right track doing the right thing.
That's amazing. Now, Rhomboid is currently playing at the King's Cross Theatre on Broadway. That's Ultimo on Broadway, corner of Mountain Street. This week, it's Tuesday to Sunday, the 9th of September, and you can grab tickets at the King's Cross Theatre website. And I just want to thank you very much for your interview today. It's been an absolute joy. It really has.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to have a space to be heard and listened to and appreciated. So thank you.